The ancient Greeks lived under a blazing Mediterranean sun, with summers that could stretch into months of relentless heat. How did they endure it without air conditioning, electric fans, or even glass windows? Some say their architectural genius gave them an advantage, designing spaces that seemed to anticipate the flow of nature itself. Others suggest common citizens developed ingenious everyday habits that kept heat at bay. Could their methods have been so effective that we still use versions of them today? Or could there be forgotten techniques, lost to time, that made summer life far more bearable than we might imagine? The story of how ancient Greeks stayed cool begins with the land itself. Greece was a mountainous country with limited fertile plains and a coastline stretching across the Aegean and Ionian seas. Summers were hot and dry, often climbing above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, while winters remained mild. In this climate, daily survival required adaptation, and comfort was far from guaranteed. The classical Greek world, spanning from around the 8th century BC to the 4th century BC, produced cities such as Athens, Corinth, and Sparta, all built in regions where the sun could dominate for much of the year. Understanding how Greeks lived with the heat begins with understanding their environment, where shade, breezes, and careful design were more valuable than gold. One of the most striking ways the Greeks kept cool was through architecture carefully adapted to the climate. Houses were typically built around a central courtyard, which served as the heart of daily life. Evidence shows that these courtyards were not only social spaces but also natural cooling systems. The open center allowed hot air to rise and escape, while shaded colonnades around the perimeter offered relief from the sun. Today, historians believe the very layout of Greek homes was designed with airflow in mind. Thick stone walls provided insulation, keeping interiors cooler during the hottest part of the day. Small, high-placed windows minimized direct sunlight, but still allowed breezes. Unlike modern houses that often seal us off from nature, Greek homes invited the outdoors to regulate their climate. Shade was one of the Greeks' most valued defenses against the sun. Public spaces, temples, and marketplaces were arranged to take advantage of shaded areas whenever possible. Archaeologists have found that many agoras, or central gathering places, had shaded porticos where citizens could conduct business without being scorched by the sun. Wealthier households even planted trees within their courtyards, creating cooler microclimates through careful landscaping. Studies show that shade from trees dramatically reduces ambient temperature, a principle the Greeks clearly understood long before the science of thermodynamics explained why. Shade was not only practical, but it also shaped aspects of Greek social life, guiding where people gathered, debated, and relaxed. Greek clothing also reflected an intimate understanding of how to stay cool. In hot summers, men and women wore lightweight garments made of linen or thin wool, such as the chiton, a simple tunic draped and fastened with pins. These garments were loose-fitting, allowing air to circulate and sweat to evaporate, which could significantly reduce body heat. The Greeks avoided layers during the peak of summer, and sandals with open designs were preferred over enclosed footwear. Art and vase paintings show Greeks lounging in such attire, their clothing both functional and symbolic of a culture that prized balance and comfort. Historians believe even choices in fabric were deeply tied to climate, with linen imported from Egypt being particularly favored for its cooling properties. Access to water was another essential key to surviving the heat. The Greeks developed sophisticated means of channeling water into their cities, including aqueducts and cisterns. Public fountains provided both drinking water and places to cool off. In wealthier homes, basins known as loutrophoroi were used for washing and cooling, often with water stored in clay vessels that kept it naturally cool. Bathing was not only about hygiene, but also about relief from the oppressive summer. In gymnasiums, men exercised in the open, but often bathed immediately afterward, ensuring the body was both refreshed and cooled. Archaeologists have uncovered remains of early bathing facilities that predate Roman baths, suggesting the Greeks valued water as both necessity and comfort during high summer. What the Greeks ate and drank also helped them endure the heat. Meals were often light in summer, consisting of fruits, vegetables, cheeses, and bread, which were easier to digest than heavy meats. One favored summer food was cucumber, known for its cooling properties. Wine, diluted with water, was consumed daily, and in hot weather, it was sometimes poured over cooled clay vessels that could reduce the liquid's temperature. Honey-sweetened water, pressed grapes, and figs also appear frequently in sources as refreshing summertime fare. Historians believe that the Mediterranean diet itself was partly shaped by the demands of climate, with food choices designed for energy, while reducing the burden of excess heat on the body. The rhythm of public life in ancient Greece also reveals how people adapted to the summer heat. Evidence suggests that many activities, from markets to civic meetings, occurred in the morning or late afternoon, avoiding the midday sun. Midday hours were reserved for rest or time spent inside shaded homes. This pattern, which resembles the modern practice of siesta in Mediterranean cultures, demonstrates a continuity of climate-based adaptation. Festivals, religious ceremonies, and public performances were often held in the evening, when cooler air made large gatherings more bearable. Historians believe that this adjustment of daily routine was just as crucial as architecture or clothing when it came to surviving summer. Some of the Greeks' cooling methods suggest a level of innovation we might not immediately associate with the ancient world. Clay jars known as amphorae, when left in breezy courtyards, cooled water through evaporation, functioning much like natural refrigerators. Archaeologists have also found evidence of underground storage rooms called hypogea, where foods and liquids could be stored in naturally cooler conditions. Leading theories suggest that Greek engineers, particularly in cities like Athens, experimented with orienting buildings to capture prevailing winds. While few detailed records survive, what evidence does exist points to a culture that valued practical innovation when dealing with the heat. The cooling strategies of the Greeks did not vanish with time. The Romans, for instance, expanded upon Greek practices, creating elaborate bathhouses and aqueduct systems that owe much to earlier innovations. Today, architects studying sustainable design often draw inspiration from Greek courtyards and stone insulation methods. Some modern cities even mimic Greek urban layouts to promote airflow and shaded communal areas. Historians believe that the enduring influence of these adaptations demonstrates how well the Greeks understood their environment, and how solutions born in antiquity continue to shape urban planning thousands of years later. The brilliance of the ancient Greeks is often remembered through philosophy, art, and politics, but their survival also depended on something more practical: learning how to endure the sun. Through architecture designed for airflow, clothing made for coolness, shaded spaces, water-centered practices, and adapted routines, they developed a system of living that allowed them to thrive in a challenging climate. Their ingenuity shows us that innovation is not always about machines or technology, but about deeply understanding the natural world. The question of how the Greeks kept cool in the heat may seem simple, yet it opens a window into a civilization that balanced comfort, necessity, and brilliance in ways that remain relevant to this day.